Well, the situation in California getting even more dire as we are now learning at least 66 people are confirmed dead. More than 600 others still missing. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sandra Smith, live inside America's Newsroom.
Good morning to you. And good morning. I'm John Scott in for Bill Hemmer. Authorities warning there could be more grim discoveries to come as they comb through neighborhoods that have been reduced to ash and rubble. The fires displacing tens of thousands of people, many of them uncertain when or if they'll be able to return home.
Considering I'm an old lady, I'm hoping to go back. I had government housing, and I'm hoping that the government replaces so that we can live back up there. It was a beautiful place to live.
I feel very fortunate to have a van. I look at other people at the car and kids, and I feel like I'm driving around in a hotel.
I had one morning where I just kind of broke down and cried, which was yesterday morning, but for the most part, I'm going to keep a smile on my face.
Jeff Paul has an update from Malibu. Jeff, what's the latest on the fire in Northern California?
Well, Sandra, authorities releasing a staggering and sobering number last night, 631. That is the number of unaccounted for people as a result of the campfire that has burned in Northern California. Volunteers are now helping in the efforts to sift through the wreckage, looking for any remains. The situation's so bad, investigators are now using mobile DNA labs to help identify victims. The death toll at the moment stands at 63 in this fire, but that number likely to rise with still so many missing.
Well, you feel terrible for these people. It's been devastating for them, and I couldn't imagine coming back here if this was my home. Our hope is that if there are missing people, we can find them and bring some closure to people that need that.
Now, 10,000 structures destroyed in the campfire in Northern California. It's burning about 80 miles north of Sacramento, many of which are homes. We're hearing about 52,000 people at the moment are displaced. So a lot of people looking for shelter, looking for a place to stay. Sandra?
Complete devastation in so many of these areas, Jeff. So that's the update in the north. What's going on with the fires in Southern California?
Well, here in Southern California, where we are in Malibu, conditions out here have improved greatly. The winds have died down. There's some humidity in the air. It's not so dry. As a result, they are lifting some of those evacuation orders for some neighborhoods. But many neighborhoods, especially the ones that we've been at here in Malibu, they're not letting people back in, and it all comes down to safety. The firefighters we spoke with said there's a couple things at work here. There's a lot of down power lines. There are some gas lines that could be considered dangerous. There's also the point of traffic. If they allow all these people to return back with some of these areas still so greatly impacted by the fires, it's not going to allow crews to move freely and get this area restored. There's also some spot fires that are popping back up. So the thing they want to stress to some of those people, they understand they're frustrated that they're not letting them back in, but they say, give us some time. We got to make this safe before we let you back in.
Our best to all those involved with the search and rescue efforts. So many still unaccounted for. Jeff Paul, thank you.
Meanwhile, President Trump is scheduled to visit California tomorrow. The White House says he'll be meeting with people affected by the wildfires. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke and FEMA Administrator Brock Long already have toured the devastation. Zinke, a former Navy SEAL, calls it worse than any war zone he saw in Iraq. And we can only hope that of those 630 people plus that are reported missing, that maybe they're living in tents or they've gone to be with family and they just can't get a hold of, of all of them yet. That's what authorities
so many of these before and after pictures of these areas. It's just hard to believe what is happening there. But yes, these search and rescue efforts, more than 600 still unaccounted for and missing. It's a horrible situation there that doesn't seem to be getting better at any moment now. Now to Florida, the Senate race there going to a hand recount. This is a live look now as the recount there gets underway in Broward County, Florida. The county officially missing the machine recount deadline by 2 minutes, causing the results to be voided. That news sparking anger from the Rick Scott campaign, as well as calls for Bill Nelson to concede.
We've had an election in Florida. We've counted all the votes. We've recounted all the votes. Governor Scott is ahead of Senator Nelson. Today is the day that Bill Nelson has to look in the mirror and ask himself if he would like to end his career dragging the entire state of Florida through the courts for more time.
Peter Ducey's live in Lauderhill, Florida. Peter, why did not Broward County submit their results on time?
Sandra, because a top official here says he just wasn't familiar with the website to submit results. So they were not input in time, and Broward County had their recount results rejected. That is even though officials came forward ahead of time before 3 o'clock yesterday to say everything was going to be in. So I had a chance to ask Brenda Snipes, the supervisor of elections here, what was the point of saying that everything was going to be okay when it wasn't?
The results were in progress. When I came out and made a statement, the results were being uploaded as I came out to speak to you. According to what we were told from the Division of Election, our completion was 3:02, and it should have been 3 o'clock on the button.
Still, Broward County's recount results are irrelevant. The state is going with their initial unofficial tally instead, and that's why the Republican Rick Scott's campaign is now accusing the county of missing the deadline on purpose, because if the recount results stand here, then Rick Scott gains a few hundred votes on the Democrat Bill Nelson in this heavily Democratic county. But if the results don't stand, which they don't, Rick Scott gains no ground, doesn't extend his lead at all. Sandra.
So, Peter, how long is the hand recount expected to take?
Officials are going to try to have about 30,000 ballots counted by 7 o'clock tonight. These are just the ballots where people either picked too many candidates or not enough candidates. There are 100 tables inside with 6 people at each, county officials and Republicans and Democrats. They think that they can review one ballot every 30 seconds, but that is just if nobody at the table out of the 6 decides to challenge a voter's intent, which is going to be tough. Sandra.
Peter Ducey in Lauderhill, Florida. Thank you.
For more on this, let's bring in Hugo Gurdon, editorial director for the Washington Examiner. So what is the meaning of those 2 or 3 minutes by which Broward County missed the deadline yesterday, Hugo?
You know, John, when you have every mistake you make tends towards a particular result, people start to see a pattern. When it's you returning your tax returns to the IRS and everything is going in your favor and you pay less, they start to wonder about fraud. When it's an election supervisor in Broward County and there's a pattern of mistake after mistake after mistake and incompetence, it's not surprising that Rick Scott would see some deliberate action here. As Peter Ducey was reporting, if the machine count had gone, the results had been confirmed, had been allowed and been valid, he would have gained 779 votes, extending his lead on Bill Nelson, the Democrat. By being 2 minutes late, it forces the whole state into a hand recount. And of course, when you get a hand recount, it introduces the possibility of human error or the possibility of further malfeasance. I think that the Rick Scott's campaign is probably right to feel that this is at least suspicious.
So Scott's campaign lost out on, as you said, almost 780 votes as a result of the administrator missing the deadline yesterday. But there are about 12,600 votes between the two campaigns. Does anybody think that this recount in Broward is going to make that kind of a difference, that the election results could be overturned?
That's a crucial point, John. Even though the percentages that trigger these counts are tiny, you look at half a percentage point will trigger a machine recount, a quarter of a percentage point will trigger a hand recount. In a state as big as Florida, these are huge numbers of votes. Ron DeSantis has 33,000 votes more than Andrew Gillum for the governor's race. And as Peter was just saying, there are 12,600 votes more for Governor Scott than there are for his Democratic opponent, Bill Nelson. Now, that 779 votes would have extended Rick Scott's lead by just 6.5%. These are very small amounts of change. And I think that it's it would be appropriate for people to think, wait a second. You really expect to overturn 12,600 votes? If that were to happen, I think more suspicions would be raised.
Well, so they are supposed to have this hand recount finished by Sunday, isn't that correct?
Yeah, Sunday at noon, I believe.
And in the meantime, Florida voters are kind of left twisting in the wind. And the longer this goes, it seems like the less trust there's going to be in the process for the next election, and then the one after that, and the one after that.
Right. Right. Broward County was at the heart of the 2000 recount. Then, just after the 2016 election, the same beautifully named Brenda Snipes, the Broward County election supervisor, was found by the court to have illegally destroyed ballots relating to the 2016 election. A court ruled just last week that she illegally concealed information relating to the ballots. The mistrust of elections in Florida is absolutely justified. There's been either culpable incompetence and negligence, or perhaps there's been fraud. I don't want to characterize it as one or the other, but it's certainly been one or the other.
Hugo Gurdon, Washington Examiner. Thanks, Hugo.
Thanks a lot.
We will have a lot more on this coming up. Later in the show, we will speak with former House Speaker Newt Gingrich and Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, as well as former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, as you very clearly laid out in that discussion. Still a lot of questions about where this all goes next, John.
It isn't over till it's over, as Yogi Berra would say, and Florida is not over yet.
All right. And now we have this breaking news for you out of the North Korean peninsula this morning. New evidence that Kim Jong-un is continuing to work on his ballistic missiles program. We are going to have the new report on that. Plus, there's this.
He believed he did not have a reason to recuse himself legally or factually. Nothing I've seen would require him to be recused. I think he's got the background and the judgment to fulfill this job.
Well, Lindsey Graham sounding pretty confident on the acting Attorney General, Matthew Whitaker, but do his Republican colleagues feel the same way? Plus, the White House calling on Congress to act when it comes to border security. Iowa Senator Jody Ernst will join us on all of that next.
The president's also made very clear, Abby, that you can immigrate to this country legally. You can go through one of the 26 ports of entry and present your claim. But the president wants border. He wants border security.
When it comes to the Mueller investigation, I am very confident he will handle it professionally. There's a sort of a chain of command, regular order, how you oversee things like this. Have every confidence that regular order will be followed, and he will make sure that Mr. Mueller has the ability to complete his job in a professional manner.
That was Senator Lindsey Graham putting his faith in new acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker. That despite reports some Republican lawmakers are concerned about the wave of controversy surrounding President Trump's temporary pick to replace Jeff Sessions. Joining us now is Iowa Senator Jody Ernst. She is the new vice chairwoman of the Senate GOP conference. Congratulations on that, by the way, Senator, and good to have you on the program this morning. So first up, Sandra, you just heard from a very confident Lindsey Graham. After meeting with him, he says he's got the assurance that he will not fire Robert Mueller. Do you share in that confidence?
Well, I certainly do. I have known Mr. Matt Whitaker for a very long time. He is an Iowan, and I know him to be a man of integrity, and he does uphold the law. So I feel confident that whatever he shared with Senator Graham yesterday was truthful, and I know Lindsey, of course, very well. And if he has confidence, certainly I have confidence as well.
What about this idea and this political report that some members of your party are pushing the president to nominate a new attorney general quickly here to sort of quell the firestorm? Could that go a long way?
Well, we do know that the Attorney General serves at the pleasure of the president, and it is up to the president to determine who serves on his cabinet. So I would love to see him make a nomination, and whoever that nomination is, we will provide advice and consent for the president. But we do want someone that does have integrity and will uphold the law.
All of this happening, Senator, of course, ahead of tough government funding talks. I'm just curious from your perspective how that's starting to shape up and what that might look like.
Well, we do know that we need to get our budget or our appropriations bills done. We need to do that in short order before funding runs out. And we do want to make sure that we are working towards the president's goal, as well as making sure that we are securing the border. Certainly, I would love to see us proceed without a government shutdown. So that means we need to be communicating quite clearly with the White House and doing the absolute best we can to achieve both goals.
What about the White House? I mean, there's reports now that the president is not committing to avoiding a partial government shutdown. He wants funding for the border wall to be included in this. We seem to be learning more here, but what are you hearing?
Well, the president has made that commitment to the American people. He has stated that he will build a wall and secure our borders. And so we need to be working with the administration to make sure he is able to achieve that for the American people. So I hope that we are able to avoid a government shutdown. I don't support shutting down our government. I think we have a lot of programs that are absolutely necessary to keep up and going. But certainly we want to work with the president. I would love to see a secure border myself.
That being said, we're now looking at a divided, split Congress and Democrats controlling the House. And there seems to be division within the Democrat Party over who's going to lead things. Nancy Pelosi says, come on in, the water's warm. There's a lot of talk about needing some new, younger, fresh blood to lead the Democratic Party. But Nancy Pelosi is very confident that she will be the next speaker. What do you know about that?
Well, it is happening over in the House chambers, and I'm very excited to see how that turns out. But I felt exactly the same way here in the Senate, in our Republican conference as well. We need to share our enthusiasm with the American people, make sure we clearly communicate our wonderful successes. We just need to connect with our voters. So good luck to them in the House. We'll see how that shakes out.
But still, you've got a big job to do in continuing to push through the White House agenda. Do you see, and what does that look like? Do Democrats end up working with Republicans to get something done?
Well, we can work together. I know that for certain. We've done a number of very large bipartisan bills that have passed and been signed into law by President Trump. Now, it will need to be a concerted effort to make sure that we are working with the House as it switches to a Democratic majority. There is a lot that we can get done. And I do hope the Democrats over there, instead of stalling and trying to divide America, that they will decide they need to work with the Republican-held Senate and achieve the goals of the president.
Senator, if I could just conclude by asking you, you say there's a lot that you can get done, bipartisan efforts. Just what would be your priority there?
Well, of course, we have our appropriations bills that need to get done. We'll need to start working on a budget and the next year's appropriations bills right away. That is a priority for Congress. That's what we need to do. We have the power of the purse. So we need to focus on those efforts. We need to maintain a strong military and, of course, always work for our veterans.
Senator Joni Ernst, it's great to have you on the program this morning. Come back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, an early winter storm taking the Northeast by surprise, the Big Apple and its suburbs covered in snow and slush, making conditions on the roads and bridges dangerous for drivers and creating a nightmare for commuters.
I think this is crazy that we have snow already before Thanksgiving.
I didn't think it was going to be this heavy.
As soon as you hit an exit, it was just like there were just like tractor trailers stopped everywhere.
Commuter chaos on the East Coast. Snow and slush making a mess of the roads and even the rails, causing car accidents all across the region, with some drivers even abandoning their vehicles in frustration. Commuter hubs came to a standstill as well. You can see this massive crowd filling New York's Port Authority bus terminal. That mess inspired today's New York Post cover. It reads, "Snow joke. City takes heat over storm chaos." The city has not seen November snow like this since the 1800s.
So many people who have commutes that are minutes turned into hours. It was not a joke about those cars all along the highway this morning. There were cars that were still sidelined. Buses even saw some. It got messy.
A 7-hour commute home from one woman I know of who normally is, an hour or less.
People running out of gas. It got really messy.
It was ugly.
We wake up to a new morning. Now, North Korea claiming it has tested a new high-tech tactical weapon. State media releasing this photo of Kim Jong-un today, inspecting the alleged test site. At the same moment, Vice President Mike Pence is meeting with Asian allies overseas. Greg Palcott is live in London with more on this. Greg, good morning.
Good morning, Sandra. Yeah, worrying news and maybe some positive news relating to North Korea today. First, to the worrying stuff. Kim Jong-un taking a look at what seems to be a sophisticated artillery unit in that state media report. Tactical implies a more localized combat, probably not a missile or a nuclear weapon that he's looking at. But it is the first time since last November that Kim has observed any kind of military testing. Then it was the launch of an ICBM missile capable of hitting the United States. This could be a response to small-scale U.S., South Korean Marine drills, exercises happening right now. Both actions not quite in the spirit of June's Singapore summit involving Kim and President Trump. Still, Vice President Pence, at a stop in Singapore, said yesterday that he felt there could be another summit coming next year. Another positive, Pyongyang doesn't seem to be hanging on to Americans as long as it used to. A few months after the release of 3 Americans held for a long time by North Korea, it announced it will be deporting an American citizen who crossed into North Korea illegally from China a month ago. More details to come on that. And finally, South Korea this week blew up a military post in the DMZ between North and South, a further effort to ease tensions involving these two countries on the Korean peninsula. No one, Sandra, said this was going to be easy. Back to you.
Greg Palcott in London for us. Thank you.
More than 600 people now reported missing in California, 66 others confirmed dead as the situation in that state goes from bad to worse. Latest details on the wildfires ahead. Plus, there's this.
The one thing he's made clear for 3.5 years now, and it helped him to win the presidency indeed, is that we are a sovereign nation in need of physical borders.
The White House making it clear President Trump wants the wall and wants Congress to take action. But is he willing to shut down the government over it?
And outrage over the president's pick for Attorney General, acting Attorney General, I should say. House Judiciary Committee member, Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs is here to talk about it. A Fox News alert now on California's wildfires. At least 66 people are now dead, and the number of missing spiking to more than 600. As wildfires ravage both ends of that state, the Camp Fire in the north leveling the town of Paradise, forcing more than 50,000 people out of their homes. That fire now ranks as the state's deadliest and most destructive ever. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke visited the state on Wednesday.
There's no silver bullet to these fires. The seasons have gotten longer. The temperatures are hotter. We're in the midst of a historic drought. We all have to work together as a team to make sure that we prevent this from happening again.
President Trump plans to travel to the fire zone this weekend to meet with survivors and fire crews.
It'd be really something to get on the ground and actually see the devastation firsthand.
Unbelievable. Zinke, as we said earlier, has seen war zones in Iraq, and he said this is worse than anything he saw over there.
It's horrible, and we still learn more, and it still continues, and still many still missing.
The president is keeping all options open. He's made that clear. The one thing he's made clear for 3.5 years now, and it helped him to win the presidency indeed, is that we are a sovereign nation in need of physical borders. And I don't know if there's anything that he's been more explicit and consistent on in the last 3.5 years. Congress needs to act.
That, of course, is Kellyanne Conway on Fox and Friends this morning. She says the president wants that border wall and is keeping all options open. Rich Edson is live at the White House for us this morning. Rich, could this lead to a government shutdown?
Now, good morning, Sandra. And President Trump says he may very well be willing to shut down the government or allow this to lapse if Congress refuses to provide the funding for a wall that he's looking for. That's according to an interview that he conducted with the Daily Caller. The White House is looking for $5 billion for this fiscal year. Meanwhile, Democrats have agreed to about $1.5 billion for border security.
Republican and Democratic Congresses, frankly, have failed to meet the president's very modest demands on ending the visa lottery system, ending chain migration. He was willing to do a deal on DACA, the Dreamers, as you know. And of course, I think one of the centerpieces, the wall funding. We see day in and day out that people are pouring over the borders poison. The drugs that are coming through our southern border is unbelievable. The fentanyl, the heroin, the cocaine. $1.6 billion is a modest down payment for the security of this nation.
of the funding and the debate around it, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says, quote, "We had a good discussion about funding the government and the other sort of year-end items. We're optimistic we're going to be able to get that done, get the Farm Bill done, move on towards the conclusion of the session. We talked about border security and how to resolve all of this. We're optimistic we have a way forward." Much of the government scheduled to shut down December 7th if Congress and the White House fail to agree to fund the government on a package that does so. Sandra.
And Rich, the White House says it continues cooperating with the Mueller probe.
That's right. Kellyanne Conway did come out to the driveway, spoke to us earlier today. She says that that the White House is cooperating, the president's cooperating, stressed again, as the president has, and maintains that his position is there was no collusion during the 2016 election. This is after the president said this week that Bob Mueller and his gang of Democrat thugs have destroyed people as the president is working through written answers to the special counsel's questions. So that also continues down here in D.C. Sandra.
All right, Rich Edson at the White House for us. Thank you.
Meanwhile, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are still raising concerns over new acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker. Let's bring in Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs. He's a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us. Are you one of those who has concerns about Matthew Whitaker?
I am not. I don't have concerns. I think DOJ has cleared him. He's got a stellar record. He's a great leader. Even one of my adversaries in some respects, Rod Rosenstein, approves of him. I think he's going to do a fine job.
Well, a number of Democrats have suggested that he should be pushed out and that the president should pick somebody else. There are even some Republicans who are saying that.
That's true, and I would disagree with them. I mean, Mr. Whitaker has a stellar reputation and has done some great things, even on religious liberty. Little Sisters of the Poor was his case. The IRS abuse case was his case. He's a great lawyer, and he's been very active, and he's done tremendous things. I don't think there's a conflict at all. I mean, he disagrees with the Mueller investigation, but no one has indicated that that's going to be pulled. Well, that investigation will continue.
The voting public at large seems to express some skepticism about the Mueller investigation. CNN did a poll and found 54% of those who voted in the last election said they thought it was politically motivated.
Well, it is politically motivated. There's no doubt about that. But Mr. Whitaker's not going to get in the way with it. We're going to let it play out, is my understanding. I believe that's what's going to happen. I think it is politically motivated, and I just don't think that there's a conflict of interest that would force Mr. Whitaker out.
When are you expecting to see results from the Mueller investigation?
About a year ago, John, is when I expected to see results. It should happen any day, actually. I mean, he's winding it down. The president's cooperating with answering a tranche of questions. My understanding is he's actually paring down his staff. He's sending people back to DOJ. And I would imagine that we're on the last legs of this investigation. And I think it's going to show what we've said all along, that there was no collusion there.
Let's turn our attention to internal politics in the House of Representatives and Nancy Pelosi's bid to become Speaker once again. Will she make it, do you think?
I personally think she's going to make it. I think it's tight for her right now, but I think let's just, I pay due respect to her. I disagree with her on 99% of things, but I think she's a pretty good tactician, particularly within her own conference. Democrats who are friends of mine that I've talked to about it, they indicate that they think she's going to get the horses and get across the line. There are people that are holding out, but I think she drags them across the line, actually.
It's been sort of an open secret, and now Marcia Fudge, Congresswoman from Ohio, is saying that she is considering a run. She's said that publicly now, that she would challenge Nancy Pelosi for House Speaker. Would you welcome that kind of a challenge?
Well, I think it's fun for us to watch if the Democrats having this little bit of struggle to finish picking Nancy Pelosi or Ms. Fudge or anybody else. The thing that's interesting about it is Ms. Fudge is the first person to actually openly say that she would challenge Nancy Pelosi. So I don't know what that means for her future, but the reality is, I think it's fun for us to be able to watch that discord on that side of the aisle for a change.
Here's what Nancy Pelosi said about her bid to regain the Speaker's chair. Listen.
I intend to win the speakership with Democratic votes. If that was your question, have overwhelming support in my caucus to be Speaker of the House. And certainly we have many, many people in our caucus who could serve in this capacity. I happen to think that at this point, I'm the best person for that.
But she has a lot of opposition even within her own caucus.
That's true, she does, and it's kind of strident opposition as well. But you know, she's expressing what you expect anybody who's running for speaker. I mean, there's always ego there, John, and so she's expressing how wonderful she thinks she is, and quite frankly, I like to see her there because I think the Democrats are really kind of overplay their hand in the next couple of years, and I think that she's going to let them go. And this discord that you're seeing there, I think, is the foundation for this overreaching that you're going to see on behalf of the other party in the next couple of years, actually.
In this divided Congress that we are about to see, you've got Democrats in control of the House. Will the country be able to get anything done?
Well, you're going to see a lot of the smaller things that we all agree on are going to take place, but I think you're going to see a lot of gridlock too. And now everybody complains about gridlock, but we just have the foundations of gridlock when you have the divided Congress. I think the Senate's going to put the brakes on a lot of ideas that come out of here because the Democrats actually have every leverage point in the House effective in the first part of January. But it's going to be very tough sledding to get anything meaningful done. I mean, things that both sides should care about, like balancing the budget and reducing the national debt. Those types of things are going to be very difficult going forward.
Congressman Andy Gibbs from Arizona, it's good to have you on. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Brand new reports, meanwhile, coming in showing that the U.S. is planning to bring charges against Julian Assange. So could the WikiLeaks founder be extradited? The details behind the breaking news straight ahead.
And it's Congressman Andy Biggs. I said Gibbs. Sorry.
Happens.
We're going to be talking to one of the reporters behind the bombshell report on Facebook. Did the social media giant mislead the public about how it responded to the Russian propaganda campaign on its platform?
Is that we were slow in identifying the Russian information operation.
When did you identify new operations?
It was right around the time of the 2016 election itself. I've said many times before that we were too slow to spot Russian interference, too slow to understand it, and too slow to get on top of it. And we've certainly stumbled along the way. But to suggest that we weren't interested in knowing the truth, or that we wanted to hide what we knew, or that we tried to prevent investigations is simply untrue.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg defending his company from new fallout. That was a conference call for reporters yesterday. This after a bombshell New York Times report claiming Facebook sought to mislead the public about its response to the Russian misinformation campaign. Joining us now is one of the authors of that piece, New York Times tech reporter Cecilia Kong. Cecilia, thank you for coming on the program this morning. I know you contributed to this piece. You worked on it for over 6 months. And now we have a look at it. And for many people, they saw, okay, more problems for Facebook or another corporate scandal. What new light does this piece shed?
What we tried to uncover and what we tried to answer was one basic question. What was happening within Facebook and at the top management, Sheryl Sandberg, the chief operating officer, and Mark Zuckerberg, what was their role in these series of crises? And what our story revealed is that when there was evidence of Russian interference, and it was mounting over months, that the company's top executives were aware of these findings, and they took efforts to disclose as little as possible, to minimize disclosures. They also tried to deflect big decisions on their findings, and also related to Cambridge Analytica, which was a privacy scandal that they also faced. So what this story sheds light on is what was happening behind the scenes in a company that is actually one of the most impenetrable companies that we've had to deal with over many years, which is quite ironic because it is a company that promises transparency and openness and to connect the world.
Interesting.
And
yes,
fact,
they've always been incredibly private. You don't see Mark Zuckerberg offer many interviews. We don't even hear from him that much. But you heard from him there, and they're pushing back against this piece, Cecilia. Sheryl Sandberg, as I saw you noted on your Twitter account, took her about 30 hours to respond. But she's suggesting that the fact that you're stating that she wasn't interested in the truth, or the executives weren't interested in the truth, or that they were trying to hide what they knew, is just simply not true. So how does the New York Times respond to Facebook and the executives pushing back on this piece?
Yes, we stand by our reporting. The anecdotes that we present, and there's so many more, are strong. And Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg are threading a needle in the sense that they don't address the specific assertions in our story when it comes to the decision from the very top to exclude the word Russia in a cybersecurity report and to minimize the disclosure of how many people were affected by Russian accounts by the Internet Research Agency as well as Cambridge Analytica. Along every step along the way, the inclination from Sheryl Sandberg and Mark Zuckerberg was to reveal as little as possible, to hope that the situation and the crises go away. So once they can address these specific anecdotes, there's another conversation, but we stand very much by our reporting, and we actually feel good about their responses.
Well, here's a piece, here's a section of the piece from the New York Times. In Washington, allies of Facebook, including Senator Chuck Schumer, the Democratic Senate leader, intervened on its behalf. And Ms. Sandberg wooed or cajoled hostile lawmakers while trying to dispel Facebook's reputation as a bastion of Bay Area liberalism. It's a strong accusation, and Chuck Schumer has responded through his spokesperson, Justin Goodman, saying this: the senator has, quote, worked aggressively to push Facebook to do more to purge fake accounts and bots used by the right wing and Russians to perpetuate a disinformation campaign and interfere with our elections. According to your piece, you go further to make the claim that Schumer was urging Mark Warner, the senator from Virginia, the top Democrat on the Senate Intel Committee, to go easy on Facebook. We remember those hours of hearings. And Mazie Hirono, the Hawaii senator, reacted to that as well. Listen.
Well, I don't know if Mark Warner did take it easy, but Chuck Schumer certainly didn't say anything to me about Facebook. I was at the hearing when Zuckerberg came to testify, and at that point, it wasn't clear to me anyway that what kind of appropriate regulation there should be.
These are really strong claims that they're being forced to respond to.
Yes, certainly. And one of the sort of contextual themes of our story is actually the political connections that top leaders at Facebook have in Washington, and particularly with the Democratic Party, and specifically Sheryl Sandberg's connections to some of the establishment and some of the more leading Democrats in Washington, like Chuck Schumer. He receives the most funding from the Facebook PAC of any Democrat. And this particular assertion, you'll note that Senator Warner has not refuted that Chuck Schumer did lean on him and pressure him. So we stand by our reporting, absolutely. It is the way, a cynical look at this. This is the way that a lot of companies operate. They have lobbying forces. They use connections on the Hill. We wanted to shed light on what that actually looks like, and particularly for a company that espouses something different.
We're running short on time here. Cecilia Kong, thank you for joining us on the program. Morale certainly an issue at that company as well. The shares are down 34% from their highs, 18% this year, and they continue to get hit as well. Cecilia, thank you.
Thank you.
Nearly 2,000 illegal immigrants already reaching the U.S. border with Mexico, with many more still coming in this latest wave. How U.S. border agents are responding. We'll take you live to Tijuana, Mexico, next.